Hey, guys.
How you doing, Senator?
How are you?
Senator.
Nice to see you.
You too.
So, how you doing, Senator?
I am great. How are you?
I'm well. So I recognize that we've been doing some studying up on you, of course, and we recognize that you like to be a man amongst the people, and that you sometimes like to stand and walk around and answer the questions. So I'm trying to be preemptive here and respectfully request, while we're engaging in conversation, we can look at you in your eyeballs, you can look at us, exactly. And then there'll be an opportunity for you to answer audience questions in, breakdance, moonwalk, however you want to make the best use of the stage.
It. Not a problem.
Thank you.
All right, Senator.
I won't dance for you.
All right.
Well, that's
Fair
a huge
enough.
disappointment, but we'll take what we can get. Let's dive right in. As you know, people of color are bearing the brunt of climate change.
Yep.
I think it's hard to think of a better example of that than Puerto Rico.
Yep.
The island is not only uniquely vulnerable to rising sea levels, flooding, hurricanes, it's also subject to systemic government neglect, which, as we've seen in the last few years, can be disastrous. So what will you do to specifically protect the people of Puerto Rico from the climate crisis?
Well, for a start, I will work with the mayor of San Juan, Carmen Julian Cruz, who is a co-chair of my campaign. So we will work together. On top of all that you have said, we have a Trump administration which is racist, which is xenophobe, which has treated the people of Puerto Rico, and everybody knows, of course, that people of Puerto Rico are American citizens, with absolute contempt. So when we have had disasters in Texas and we've had disasters elsewhere, money comes in. But somehow, for the people of Puerto Rico, there has been a significant delay and insignificant funding for their very, very serious crises. That's point number one. So as president, we will work with the people of Puerto Rico as brothers and sisters, as fellow Americans, and not demonize them or attack their political leaders. Number two, absolutely, it'll be poor people and people of color all over the world who are hardest hit by climate change. But the bigger issue is it's not only people of color and poor people, it is the fact that climate change is an existential threat to the entire planet. And what the scientists are now telling us, and this is really scary stuff, is they have underestimated the speed and severity in which climate change is ravaging this entire planet. And that is why I am very proud to have introduced the most comprehensive climate change plan ever introduced by any candidate for federal office. It is based on the principles of the Green New Deal. What it will do is take on the greed and corruption of the fossil fuel industry. It will transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. But we have to do more than just take on our own fossil fuel industry, because this is not an American issue. It's not a Puerto Rican issue. This is a global issue. And as President of the United States, my view is that we have got to reach out to every country in the world and tell them that instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe we should pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change.
So, Senator, you mentioned the term New Deal. And
Green New Deal.
Green
yes.
New Deal, yes. But New Deal is in the title. And every time America has passed this huge transformative social program from Social Security to Obamacare, it's found some way to screw over black people. And so my question to you is, what are you going to do to make sure that your social programs aren't watered down in Congress in ways that exclude black Americans?
Our plan, if anything, is going to be benefiting the African-American community and the Latino community and the Native American community. All right. So when you talk about Medicare for all and guaranteeing health care to every man, woman, and child in this country, it benefits everybody. It benefits primarily or significantly the people who today don't have health insurance or are significantly underinsured, which is the black community and the Latino community. When I talk about making public colleges and universities tuition free, you know who the people now who are struggling most with student debt? young African Americans. Young African Americans are also having a hard time getting into college, going to graduate school, coming out with huge debts. So when we make public colleges and universities tuition-free, impacts everybody, significantly helps the African American and Latino community. When we talk about criminal justice reform, right now, disproportionately, as everybody knows, people in jail, African American, Latino, Native American. Our criminal justice reform will significantly benefit the African American community.
Senator, I think there are a lot of people who support universal social programs, but are skeptical that they by themselves are capable of undoing the damages of hundreds of years of white supremacy, right? Senator Elizabeth Warren, for example, your rival in this race, has a proposal, a concrete targeted proposal to address the issue of high maternal mortality rates among black women, which is an issue that's come up multiple times just in this forum today.
Sure.
In addition to her support for Medicare for All, a universal program, why don't you have a program like that?
We do. I mean, it's the difference between Medicare for All and the dysfunctional, cruel system that we have right now. What is the function of our current healthcare system? You know what the function is? It's to make billions of dollars in profit for the drug companies and the insurance companies. That's what it's about. Everybody knows that. And by the way, today, I got to get it right here. It's the American College of Physicians, I think it's what it's called. 159,000 doctors later today are going to come out for Medicare for All, because the medical profession knows how absurd and cruel the current system is. To answer your question, we need a healthcare system which has a simple function. And that function is to provide healthcare to all people as a human right, not make billions of dollars in profit for the healthcare industry, which made $100 billion in profit last year. Now, to answer your question, when you are running a nonprofit system designed to provide healthcare to all, you're going to focus on some of the major crises. And you're absolutely right. Child, infant mortality rate in the African American community, much higher than the white community. Maternal mothers dying in childbirth, 3 times higher than in the white community. We do not have enough black doctors. We do not have enough black psychiatrists, psychologists, nurses. On the Medicare for All, what we will do is make sure that people can go to medical school and practice the kind of medicine that needs to be practiced without going deeply into debt. So under Medicare for All, we will function on the major healthcare crises facing this country and not just make the drug companies and the insurance companies rich.
Let's move on to immigration.
Good.
You have a truly comprehensive, large, very detailed immigration plan, more so, I think, than any other candidate in this race. I think that needs to be recognized. But you haven't had to talk about it very much in public so
I've
far.
talked about it a lot.
We're about to talk about it some more.
Good.
So let's start with the wall. The idea for Trump's border wall didn't come out of nowhere. It's the logical result of many decades of both Republicans and Democrats spending billions and billions of dollars on border security. That includes close to 700 miles of fencing. You've been very clear that you oppose any additional funding for a border wall. But would you go further? Will you tear down the wall?
Well, it's something you're going to have to look at. The symbolism of the wall is a terrible, terrible symbol. Now, I don't know how much money it costs to tear down a wall, but at a time when we have 500,000 people sleeping out on the streets tonight, when we have an infrastructure which is falling apart, we should be investing in the needs of the American people and not building a wall. So I've been very, very strongly opposed to that on principle, as I have been to Trump's entire immigration policy. And let's be clear what his policy is about. It's a political policy. What Trump believes is that he can succeed politically by dividing the American people up based on the color of our skin, based on where we were born, based on our religion, based on our sexual orientation. That's what he believes, based on our gender. And obviously, the first thing and most important thing, I think, a president, and by the way, I speak as the son of an immigrant. My father came to this country at the age of 17 from Poland without a nickel in his pocket, couldn't speak a word of English. So, you know, my father was an immigrant. So I think the first thing that we have to do is end the demonization of the immigrant community, which I think is just grossly disgusting, and is what Trump does for a political reason. And I will tell you that on my first day in office, we will end all of Trump's racist immigration executive orders.
So Senator, you said the wall is symbolic and it represents.
Yes.
So wouldn't it be proper to tear that symbol down in order to achieve that?
It may be, but it's how much is it going to cost to tear it down? Should you do that, tear it down? I don't know. Maybe the answer is yes. It's something.
That's something you're willing to consider. You're willing to consider tearing down existing fencing between U.S.
I'm willing to look
U.S.
at it. But again, if it's going to cost me billions of dollars to tear it down, I'd rather invest that maybe in the needs for childcare in this country. But it's something we can look at.
Okay. Moving on to a couple different points in your immigration platform. You've said that you're willing to give visas to undocumented workers who report labor violations. I want to walk through the implications of that. If there is an undocumented worker at one of Donald Trump's golf courses who says that she was made...
I can't believe that would happen. Can you? I mean, here is a man who demonizes the undocumented. We're supposed to hate him. He has hired hundreds of them over the years. I'm really shocked by that.
And several of them have said that they've been made to work overtime without any pay.
Shock.
So if such a worker reports those wage and hour violations,
yes,
you as president would give that worker a visa to stay legally in the United States.
Look, let me tell you something that I did. So it's not what I will do, it's what I've already done. Anybody here know where Immokalee, Florida is? Ring a bell to anybody? I got one guy. Small town near Naples, Florida. It is where most of the tomatoes in America used by McDonald's and Burger King are grown. Most of the people there are undocumented. I went there a number of years ago at the request of a non-union union, really was a union, to see what we can do to improve working conditions there. We had a hearing in Washington, D.C. In fact, we did end up driving up wages to some degree and improving living conditions. One of the issues, and I'm glad you raised it, because we very rarely talk about it. One of the aspects of immigration that we don't talk about now is the exploitation of many, many undocumented workers. If you are undocumented and I say, hey, you want a job working around my house? I'm going to hire you for $5 an hour. Well, the minimum wage is higher than that. Yeah, take it or leave it. Who are you going to go to? Protest. Well, you work for me 20 hours and I give you $10, 10 hours of compensation. Who are you going to protest to?
Will you give the undocumented worker at Trump's golf course a visa to stay in the country?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, what we're talking about is ending ICE raids. We are talking about ending the terrorization that exists in so many communities.
I'm happy you bring that up, Senator. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's precisely what I wanted to ask you about next.
Yeah.
You've promised a moratorium on deportations the moment you take office.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I understand what that means. That means once you are president, no one, well, I know it's while you conduct an audit of the immigration system.
That's correct. And right. And I'm not going to tell you here if somebody has been convicted of a terrible, terrible crime, that may be the exception to the rule.
So in my understanding, that's not what a moratorium means.
Well, a moratorium is that there will be no deportations. There may be a few exceptions. Now, you can quibble about it, but a moratorium on deportations for the 99% of the people is nothing to be cynical about. I think that is a significant step forward, and the undocumented community would be very proud of that.
So, what do you say to the primary voters that, say this will leave you vulnerable, very vulnerable to attacks?
Well, I think this is an issue. I think you're right, by the way. I mean, I think this is something Trump will, of course, jump all over. No question about it. And I think what we have got to talk about is the issue you raised about the fact that, Trump has a brilliant idea. He wants to throw all of the undocumented out of the country tomorrow, right? That's one of his visions. Do you know what would happen if that happened? The whole entire economy, certainly our agricultural sector, would disintegrate. That's what would happen. All right. So the point that has to be understood is that immigrants today, documented, undocumented, are playing an enormously important role in our economy. And if somebody is out there working and getting paid under the table, getting exploited, no, in my view, that worker deserves legal protection, period. And I want to just say something, if I may. This is important not only for the undocumented who are being exploited. It is important for people who are citizens of this country who are then involved in a race to the bottom. If I can pay you $5 an hour, then I can pay him lower wages. So when we make sure that every worker in America has legal protection, it benefits everybody.
Right. Okay, a moratorium that includes certain exceptions for people with violent criminal records, I recognize is still, I have to make clear that is still, in the context of American politics, a radical position. I don't think there's ever been a viable presidential candidate that's run with that platform. I'm sure you did just recognize, Trump is going to make the general election about immigration. He's going to do everything he can to exploit the fear and xenophobia that he's already been exploiting.
Yep.
There are new caravans forming in Central America. Who's to say how far they'll go? But let's say that there's another caravan, another substantial caravan that manages to work its way through a good part of Mexico during the general election, and it becomes the object of attention, constant attention on Fox News, the way it was the last time. What will you say about something like that?
Right now, in addition to a broken criminal justice system, our system in the border is also broken. If you come from another country and you apply for asylum, which is what the whole process is about, there are international standards that are applicable, all right? If you're coming to America from another country, just say to get a job, hey, I'd love to come to America. You know what? You're not going to get asylum. If you're coming to America because your family has been subjected to violence, you know what? There is a process. You may well be accepted in an asylum process. But what happens right now, we have a huge backlog, and we need to hire hundreds of new administrative judges, which is certainly something we will do immediately. So asylum is a process. There are standards for it, and we have got to make sure that there is an expeditious process by which case by case are judged.
So, Senator, really quickly before we throw it to the audience, your agenda is radical. You said that
it is not radical.
Well, many people would say that it is in comparison.
Well, in comparison to Donald Trump, I guess it's
right. And even some of the other candidates running for the Democratic
What's radical
nomination.
about my agenda?
Well, let me just finish the question here. You yourself said that your strategy to winning the presidency is a gamble.
No, I never said that.
You were quoted saying that in a BuzzFeed profile.
Yes.
Or gamble? Well,
yeah.
All right.
So
you were describing the strategy of expanding the electorate, getting people to participate.
By gamble, I meant I can't guarantee that it will work. You know,
right.
You can guarantee anything will work.
And my question is, and I would imagine most folks in this room would say, like, the stakes in this election are very high.
Very high.
Right?
Yes.
And so, a lot of folks say we don't need this guy, Trump, in office for another 4 years.
Yep.
And so if your strategy is a gamble, and this shouldn't be taken as a game, then why shouldn't they go with a safer choice?
You're taking the point that I made is that every candidate's strategy is a gamble. No candidate who's going to come before you is going to be guaranteed that their strategy will work. All right, here is my strategy. You said that my agenda is radical, correct?
I said yes.
Okay.
In connection to again. Wait.
I'm going to answer your question.
Okay.
I really will.
Okay.
Guaranteeing health care to all people through a Medicare for All program, is that radical? Raising minimum wage to $15 an hour, is that radical? Making public colleges and universities tuition free, canceling all student debt through a tax on Wall Street speculation, radical? Dealing with climate change, radical? Immigration reform, radical? Criminal justice reform, radical? Protecting a woman's right to control her own body, radical? Sane gun policy, radical?
All right, Senator.
I beg your pardon. Radical agenda. Now,
listen.
Let me answer your question.
Wait.
I just wanted to clear the air.
Wait.
All right, let me answer the question. You asked me about my strategy. That's the question.
You already got audience participation right now, so we might as well just roll with it. And
let me answer your question because it's a serious question.
Okay.
And it's a question I can't guarantee the answer. I don't like the word gamble, but I can't guarantee that it will succeed. Here's the point. Number one, you're absolutely right. Defeating Trump, to me, is absolutely an imperative. And let me be very clear. You're going to hear during the next couple of weeks, people will be attacking each other, and I'll be in the middle of it and all that other stuff. Understand that at the end of the day, I think I can speak for all of my Democratic fellow candidates. We will all be united around the winner. Needless to say, I hope it's me, but others hope it will be them. I got it. We will all be united and work as hard as we can to support the winner to defeat the most dangerous president in American history. All right. Number two, to answer your question, I happen to believe that Trump will be a very formidable opponent for a large number of reasons. He lies all the time, et cetera, et cetera. But to defeat Trump, we are going to need a very large voter turnout. Okay, that's my view. And then you have got to think, how do you create that large voter turnout? Which campaign can do it? I'm not saying that we are the only campaign, but I think we are well suited because of our message and our grassroots activism. We are asking and working hard, spending a whole lot of money, reaching out to working class people who have been disillusioned by the political process and normally don't vote. We are reaching out very strongly to young people who are the most progressive generation in the history of this country, but have a history of not voting in the numbers that they should. So our job is to grow the voter turnout with working class people, with young people, with people who believe in justice. A large voter turnout will beat Trump.
Thank you. So this is the opportunity where you get to stretch your legs a bit.
All right.
Stage.
Sing and dance and all that
yeah,
stuff?
all of that. So we have a few questions from the audience.
Yeah,
Paula.
so Senator, I'd like to introduce you to Deanna. She's a student at Drake University, and she has a question.
Hi, I was wondering, with the rising tensions going right now on with Iran, how would you, as president, work to de-escalate the situation in a way that protects Americans, Iranians, and also anyone else who could get caught in the middle of that conflict?
Well, one thing I would not do is assassinate a high-ranking official in the Iranian government. You're looking at somebody who, when he was your age, marched against the war in Vietnam. As the United States congressman, voted against and led the opposition to the war in Iraq, have done everything I can to get the U.S. out of military intervention in Yemen, and will do everything I can to end endless wars. I believe that war is a human outrage, and I think many people, talk about going to war and getting tough. I'm the former chairman of the Senate Veterans Committee. I talk to the people who were in war. So I think what we have got to do is put our focus using the strength and the wealth of the United States in bringing people together through diplomacy. So I am tired of the United States spending trillions of dollars on endless wars. So what we have got to do is say to Iran, say to Saudi Arabia, you know what? Come on in. Come on into the Oval Office or any place you want, and let's sit down and see how we can work out these conflicts without threatening the entire region with more and more war.
Thank you. Thanks for your question. We have Dr. Srinivas, and if I butchered that, it's too important, so please correct me. She's a physician from Fort Dodge, Iowa.
Hi, Senator. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your discussions about improving accessibility to care. So today I want to ask you about availability. In the last 15 years, we have seen a massive contraction of medical services, especially in rural areas such as my own, Fort Dodge, Iowa, where I'm now the only infectious disease physician for a 70-mile radius. In these areas, when this happens, when hospitals close, clinics shut down, when specialists are disappearing, we find that it's marginalized populations, including Black and brown patients, that are most affected. How are you going to address this in your role as president?
Well, I mean, that's not a dissimilar question from what was asked in the beginning. Don't get me going, because you're going to have to yank me off here. I know we only have a few minutes to talk about healthcare. We are spending twice as much per capita on healthcare as do the people of any other country. Don't you think that when you spend so much, we might have by far the best, most accessible healthcare system in the world? Don't you think we shouldn't be paying 10 times more for medicine than people in other countries are now paying? What a Medicare for All system is about is not making huge profits. It's about addressing the healthcare needs. How insane is it that in the year 2020, we're talking about rural hospitals shutting down and people having to go hundreds of miles? What happens if you have an emergency? You don't even have the care that you need. So what we need is a healthcare system that is designed to provide quality care to all people, certainly including rural America, certainly including urban America. And we can do it for far less cost than the current system.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for that question. Alzo has something else for you.
Thank you, Paula. Senator, so we just have one more thing to ask of you before you depart us, and it is what we call the short answer. So you know what it is. It's 60 minutes. I mean, not 60 minutes. Oh, my God.
Sorry.
He's good. He's gonna
Did
shine.
you hear him? 60 minutes, I'm ready. Go. Okay.
60 seconds, you answer as many questions as possible. And you can get a pass, but no one is passed. So I suggest you don't, or you will be judged.
Harshly.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
What is your biggest insecurity?
Saying something dumb.
What was
You're
your
laughing.
What was your first job and how much did it pay?
My first job was carrying soda bottles from a warehouse to a truck, and it paid. This is a long time ago, obviously. It paid pretty well, and I learned out that it was a Teamster operation.
Ooh, wait, Senator.
And that was my first introduction to unions, and I've liked them ever since.
Who was the first candidate you voted for?
Oh, Lord. Maybe Kennedy. I won't swear to you on that one, maybe Kennedy.
What's the worst job you've ever had?
I put carpets with all kinds of smelly, disgusting glue, which kills people, I think. But, just was not a good job.
Yes, and the last question that's out of the 60 seconds, was that torturous for you to try to come up with short answers?
Yeah.
Howdy do, folks. Thank you, Senator Sanders.
Hey, thanks
we
very
really
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.